Welcome to another Knott Avenue Christian Church video production. Our special guest speaker today is former Muslim and terrorist Mosab Hassan Yousef. Joseph, as he is known, is the son of Sheikh Hassan Yousef, a founding leader of Hamas, internationally recognized as a terrorist organization responsible for countless suicide bombings and other deadly attacks against Israel.
I know you're all comfortable, but could I ask you as we come before God together to stand, that we might talk with Him together this morning. Father in heaven, for this day we give you thanks. The beauty of it is overwhelming, and we can often take it for granted, but we know that the life you've given us is precious, and we want to use it to the fullest. We thank you this day for the journey that you have brought each of us on. And especially this morning, as we're going to hear from our brother Mosab, that you might inspire his words, that you might anoint him. He's going to be telling his story, Father, but in that, would you help us hear your story of how you've connected with him and what you are doing in his life to bring him from where he was to where you would have him be. Father, anoint our hearts and our ears that we might hear not just a story, but a message for ourselves. Might we be drawn closer to you because of what you are doing in the lives of people around us. We thank you for this day now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I would like to say as we begin that we ask that there would be no photography, no video taping, no cell phones going off. And also, this is an interview that you get to listen in on, but this is not a dialogue time or a public forum. So all the conversation is going to be up here this morning, okay? And you're going to be blessed, I guarantee you. Mosab,
Okay.
welcome from Knott Avenue.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Have a seat. Number 4. You doing okay?
Yeah, we'll get him there.
Mosab, we as Americans don't know much about Hamas. We know you're called son of Hamas. Some of us don't even know really what that means. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Give us some context for this whole story.
Yeah. Well, first of all, good morning. It's a beautiful California morning, as usual. And we don't want to bring the Middle East politics to pollute the atmosphere. But it's necessary to and important to give you an idea where I'm coming from and about my background. So I hope that I will be able to deliver that, first of all. Second, I hope that you have the patience to stay with us. I was born for a Muslim family in the Middle East, in Israel, where Jesus Christ was born. Actually, his hometown is not that far from where I live, about an hour and a half drive. And Bethlehem is about a half-hour drive from my hometown. To be born in an Islamic family that leads the Islamic Sunni revolution in the Middle East, maybe you would wonder, what are you doing in a church? Especially when my father happened to be one of the top leaders of Hamas organization. Hamas is the Islamic resistance movement. It was born with 2 main goals: to destroy the state of Israel and to build an Islamic state on the rubble of the state of Israel. My father was one of the founders of this movement. Today, he is the top leader of the movement in the West Bank, where the majority of the Palestinian population. I am his oldest son, and at some point he expected from me to become an Islamic leader. This is why he named me Mosab, long time before he even met my mother. Because Mosab was the best friend of Muhammad the prophet of Islam. Mus'ab, unlike most of Muhammad's followers, was from a royal family. His parents were rich, and they had a very high position in the society, the Meccan community. He left everything behind. His mother sent a messenger to him to turn his back on Muhammad and come back to the religion of his fathers. And Mus'ab said something very famous to his mother: if you have 7 souls and you lose one after another, I'm not going to leave Muhammad's message. I will stay with Muhammad. His mother was trying to bring him back, and he did not want to leave Muhammad for family or identity. This is the story that my mother told me from the beginning, why I was named to be Mus'ab, to remind me that one day we want you to be the Islamic ambassador like Mus'ab, because Mus'ab was the first Islamic ambassador. He was the one who came from a rich royal family and left all the prestige and the life that he had to go follow Muhammad and be persecuted. Now, my mother wanted me to be that. And I did. But not for Muhammad. I did for the sake of Christ. What's funny, when my mother called, actually it was my sister, and I told them I'm going public with my faith in Christ. So expect some media coverage for this. And I knew that it's going to be embarrassing and shameful for the family. My sister called me a few hours, and she told me, my mom just had a heart attack. She's in the hospital. This is a very sensitive time. Please don't go public. At least, wait for a week. They were afraid that I was irrational, that I was reacting for something because I was angry, and they wanted me at least to have a week, and they could stop me by saying only a lie, that my mother is having a heart attack in the hospital dying, so let's not help her die. And this reminded me of the story that my mother told me about Mus'ab, the first Islamic ambassador, when she lied to him, and she said, I'm striking. And he said, if you have 7 souls and you lose soul after another, I am not leaving message of Muhammad and coming back. And it was really funny to see the things that they taught me. I was trying to demonstrate exactly what I learned from them, but the way that I see it today. I did not share this before. I thought that it would be interesting, so I hope I did not bore you with the Mus'ab.
Were you bored? Thank you for that.
Okay.
Tell us about your relationship with your father, the kind of man he was to you in your eyes growing up.
My father is a very charismatic, strong personality leader. You could see him on the podium of a mosque, jumping. People would come to him and say, Sheikh, you gotta calm down. But he would be speaking to thousands of people on a weekly basis. Sometimes he would have 50,000 people crowd coming from all over the country to hear him speak for half hour. So he's very influential. He got the most votes in the elections. He believes in the cause of Islam. Islam and Allah is not just a matter of business. To him, he believes if he dies for the cause of Islam, he's going to heaven. This is the type of person that I grew up witnessing. He would be dragged by the Israeli soldiers many times. He spent over 15 years in Israeli prisons. One time, Israel released him for 6 hours and re-arrested him again. So we're talking about somebody who will never give up. Today, he is in an Israeli prison, while a parliament member, while he could simply just stop talking to media for 6 months, and Israel wouldn't arrest him, but he couldn't stop for a day. He was released after 6 years, spending in Israeli prisons for 1 month and rearrested again. Now he's under the administrative detention, a political prisoner in Israel today, while I'm here speaking at this church at this moment. So we're talking about someone who's not willing to give up his belief. He believes in something, and he believes strongly in it. This is the type of father that I've got. I believe that he's loving, he's nice, he's kind to my mother, to us, to our neighbors. But honestly, he's part of a big dream that is no more than a shadow of reality. And he thinks that this is reality. He believes in it like millions of Muslims do. And this is the time to tell them, people, wake up. Come back to life. Question, doubt. And I hope that one day I will be able to communicate these exact words with him.
What was it like for you growing up as a boy in a war zone? What did you think? How did it impact you in those growing up years?
Yeah. Well, now try to imagine growing up in the Palestinian territories. Palestinians consider themselves under the Israeli occupation. The United Nations consider Israel as occupying force against Palestinians. And Palestinians play the game of being victim. It's easy, or at least it used to be very easy for me to blame Israel on all our political and social and many other problems on Israel. That was the easy way. I never had the courage in my past life to look at myself in the mirror and say, this is not Israel's problem, this is my problem, I need to work on that, I have responsibility to do. So, growing up in that environment, playing the victim, witnessing lots of bloodshed. Now, the reality through the eyes of a child in that environment was Israel is the enemy. How can you convince a child after you take his father from him for many years that you are not the enemy? A child does not have the power to distinguish between things, good and bad, and to see the root of the problem, not the reflection of the problem. Muslim family, Palestinian family, very conservative, nationalist. I hated Israel for political, personal, national, and ideological reasons. If any one of us were born or was born in that environment, what would we be today, or that person be today? Will you be in this place or in that place as a human being? My environment played very important role to shape my future, and I had at some point to make very difficult choices that cost me the most important things in life that we will be talking about. I hope I answered your question. Okay.
That's great. You were a devout Muslim growing up?
Not today.
Growing up as a boy?
Yes, I was. I attended the mosque 5 times a day. I remember myself going to the dawn prayer. Dawn prayer starts at between 4 and 4:30 a.m. So now imagine for a child who's trying to make his parents proud of him, going to the mosque, walking by the walls of the cemetery, and the cemetery was really creepy and scary, and trying to get to the mosque, because I was trying my best to please that God, to please my family, to meet with their expectations. Unfortunately, I couldn't meet with their expectations, and I had to disappoint them at some point.
tell us a little bit more about growing up next to Israel with the conflict going on, and what precipitated your actual involvement in a terrorist kind of response to the Israelis?
Well, it happened that my father moved us to a new area, and that area was next to the cemetery that I told you about. Now, when the first Palestinian Intifada started, there was lots of bloodshed in the streets, and many young people were killed. They were buried next door, so I had to witness the bloodshed that happened in the entire town draining in our neighborhood. And it was very hard to see that it was our Palestinian leadership, political mistakes that brought our nation to that level. It was much easier to see and think that Israel is responsible for the death that happened. Now, I start, as I said, to blame Israel for everything, and at the age of 17, I purchased guns, trying to become a terrorist. Fortunately, I was arrested 3 weeks after, even before I learned how to use the guns, by the Israeli authorities. So simply you can say that I tried to become a terrorist, and I failed, big time. So I was arrested by Israel, and a new chapter of my life started. I was at the age of 18 when I was arrested.
Unpack that new chapter a little bit for us. What happened? What was Israel's response to you?
I wanted him to ask that question. Did you notice?
We work well together.
Well, it's not easy, to be preparing for your final exams when Israeli special forces undercover, stop you and kidnap you somehow and beat you almost to death. This is not an Israeli governmental policy, by the way. I have to be clear about this. But that was an event where the soldiers knew that I was a son of a top Hamas leader and founder. So they were 19 and 20 years old. They were angry, and they thought they could take revenge from me. So they beat me almost to death with the back of their rifles. By the time I got to the interrogation center, I was almost done. Even the doctor did not want to accept me in that prison for my condition. Now, why I'm saying this? I'm saying this not to play the victim. I'm saying this trying to, if there are like any Muslims among us here. Is there like any Muslim today here among us? That's unfortunate. To show my people that I suffered, I've been there. If you want to tell me about how much frustrated you are because of Israel, let me tell you how much I suffered. But Israel was not the source of that problem. The problem was much deeper and much more complicated. I was part of the problem. I should not get myself in trouble. Why buying guns? Why trying from the beginning? Israel is a small country trying to defend itself, and I was messing with the fire. Israel wouldn't tolerate anybody who's trying to hurt civilians, and I could not see that. To me, it was resistance, the clothing of justice, the clothing of happiness that Hamas is wrapping itself and lying to our people by killing innocent people. Now, I was beaten, as I said. It was very difficult treatment, but in prison, the Israeli authorities try to recruit anybody to come and work to bring security to the state of Israel. So I was one of the candidates because I am a son of a top Hamas leader. And now they are offering me to work for them. And now try to imagine yourself with your background or the hatred that you had, the frustration, and now the state that you hate the most is asking you to work for it. What your answer would be? I said yes, and I had in mind different agendas. I had in mind that now they're going to release me, I would be free again, and I would give them false information, fool them simply. I thought that I could fool the most powerful intelligence agency in the world. Finally, I was waiting. They're going to release me right now because I agreed to work. They said, we're sorry, we have to send you to prison because if we release you, you would be exposed and Hamas will kill you. So you have to go spend time with everyone else. Just a short time. Now they send me to prison, and I had no other choice, as you see. And the short time was 16 months, where I got to witness Hamas brutality in prison. This time, it's not an Israeli torture against Palestinian that I would say, okay, this is obvious. We know the enemy. But today, I have a new challenge. I see Hamas in prison torturing Hamas people in prison. Hamas security wing had suspicion that some prisoners gave information and collaborated with the Israeli intelligence. So they were looking for those people, torturing them. 16 people were killed, 100 were tortured, brutally. They would bring a prisoner, put lots of physical pressure on him. For example, putting needles under their fingernails, asking them about their network. Who else worked for Israel? The guy did not have even a relationship with Israel from the first place, but under lots of pressure, he had no choice but to mention that his mother recruited him. And Hamas would go in prison and outside prison and torture and kill all those people. This is Hamas method. So now, as I said, as a child, it was very difficult to distinguish between good and bad. Okay, Israel is bad, Palestine is good, move on. But now, I see a different color to the picture. I see Hamas, my father's organization, is killing and torturing our people. What if Hamas becomes the government at some point? That was a big question in prison. Now, our project as a family is the Islamic project. We want to conquest the globe and build an Islamic state on the rubble of every civilization. That's the announced goal of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. That's the announced goal of Islam itself. If we could achieve part of that big goal of establishing an Islamic state where Israel exists today, what Hamas is going to do to our people. Hamas in prison was a mini government. They had somebody who's Amir, like the prime minister. They had ministers. They had Shura Council, which is like a legislative council. They had all that. And it was really a mini government. The Israeli authorities could not control that because Hamas prisoners don't consider themselves as criminal prisoners. Hamas prisoners consider themselves as freedom fighters. And by the way, there is no terrorist in the world who feel like a terrorist. Hamas people feel righteous and they think that they're doing the right thing for themselves, for their God, for their nation, for humanity. That's part of this whole challenge that they believe in what they're doing. So now, because I believed very much, I was trying to put scenarios. What could happen? I saw through the eyes of my mind and my soul at that moment, Hamas killing and torturing our people. And today, it became a reality. Hamas controlled Gaza Strip just a few years ago. And I saw with my eyes Hamas throwing people who opposite them in the Gaza Strip from the 28th story alive. I've seen that on YouTube. You can see it. I've seen Hamas killing people, Muslims, but they had different theology or different idea of Islam. They killed them in the mosque. Hamas troops came, surrounded the mosque, and they kept shooting while people were begging them on the speakers, please stop shooting. We are brothers in Allah. We are brothers in Islam. Please stop shooting. And they kept shooting for hours till they killed 50 men in a mosque. And all of them speak with the name of Allah. Like Saddam Hussein, he attacked Israel by the name of Allah. Hamas kills Fatah, which is another terrorist group, by the name of Allah. Hezbollah kills Israelis by the name of Allah. Jordanians against Syrians by the name of Allah. And you start to ask a question, who is Allah? That he's like with everybody who's trying to kill. To come to the result that Allah is no more than a motivator for killing and destruction. So that was the experience in prison. And it was shocking. It was very hard to question my identity. Hamas was not only a business for us. Hamas was not only a business and my father is involved, this is what he does for a living. It was our future. If Hamas fails, we fail. And everybody, if you want to be rational and reasonable, you would say, that's not my problem. I will not kill anybody, but at least I have to be part of the community. I am here not by choice. I'm here because I was born here. Stick your head in the sand, stay in your comfortable zone. Why to go face everybody, lose your family, your father, and get killed at some point? Why anybody wants to do that? But the truth was much stronger than the comfort of having an identity somehow. And when I was released from prison, a new chapter of my life started.
You're probably going to want me to ask you about that, huh?
Well, I think it's obvious to everybody. I was trying to just give them an example.
You set me up well, thank you. Tell us about that chapter. And I'm thinking specifically about that invitation to a Bible study, the fellow who did that, and the journey of faith that began to lead you on to Christ.
Well, I told you about my motivation of fooling the Israeli intelligence. Now, I go to prison, I have another part of the truth, that I could see a bigger picture, and now I am not interested anymore. Why would I go and try to play a game like this where I don't even believe in who I am anymore? So, I was invited by the Israeli intelligence. I recognized the name, I go to the meeting, and when we say a meeting, I was most likely kidnapped to a location that I didn't know where it is. It was somewhere under the ground, and here I am talking to the guy who recruited me, the Israeli intelligence officer. And I'm asking him, why didn't you come rescue people who helped the state of Israel? And how dare, even you can bring me to a meeting like this trying to convince me to work for you? You left your people behind. They were tortured and killed on a daily basis. He looked at me and had this yellow smile on his face, and he said, let me ask you something. You agreed to work for us. Did we connect you with any network in prison? I said, no. And he said, okay, how Hamas works, they torture somebody. What is your network? They confess 100 names, and Hamas goes and torture everybody else. And none of those guys work for us. And we cannot, as Israelis, teach Hamas morality, because Hamas wouldn't listen to us. And let Hamas destroy itself. And he made a good point, actually. And 14 years after that, working for the Israeli intelligence, I never was connected with any other agent in the field. This is not how intelligence services work. Imagine CIA sending 100 spies overseas and connecting all spies together. If one is caught in Iran, he would mention 99 names and the entire agency is exposed. That's not intelligence. That's somehow stupidity. So in the intelligence world, this is not how we worked. And that brought another shocking truth, that we were not, my father's organization and myself at that time, we were not only torturing our people, we were also ignorant. And we don't qualify even to rule sheep, not human beings. But now I'm starting this awkward, weird relationship with my enemies that I wanted to destroy at some point, that I don't understand them, I don't understand their culture, I don't trust them. Obviously, they don't trust me either. So we're sitting in a meeting, drinking coffee, doing what? And my father is trusting, it's like his oldest son, going to the mosque, doing the Islamic thing, pretending, lying simply. And I'm sitting, drinking coffee with his worst enemies that he's trying to destroy. How could you live with something like this? Our relationship continued in an awkward way. My new motivation became curiosity. Because now, as you see, I'm learning the truth from my enemies who I wanted to destroy at some point. The truth that I did not learn from people who I trusted. Now, I was confused, I was conflicted, I doubted everything in my life. Till the moment I was invited to a Bible study, I was given the Bible as a gift, and I was reading the Sermon on the Mount when the Lord said, "Love thy enemy." And that helped me solve that problem. Because I was looking for my enemy. Define enemy. Who's enemy? And I didn't know who was my enemy, who was my friend anymore. Excuse me. Jesus Christ is telling me, how about don't consider anybody as enemy and love everybody unconditionally. This is your challenge. Will you take it? I thought it was worth to take the challenge, but I was in the middle of a mess. Hamas is a terrorist organization, underground organization. Even its own members, its own leaders don't know everything about the movement. My father is a top Hamas leader. He doesn't know about the military wing activities. He doesn't know about the dynamics of the movement. Maybe he has enough experience to figure things out, but he does not ask, and he does not want to get involved in every activity of the movement. This is how the movement survives, because Hamas was born to destroy Israel slowly. Their strategy is to bleed the enemy for a long time, till it dies. The strategy of Hamas, not to send everybody like Al-Qaeda to leave their works and go die for the glory of Allah. Hamas says, send only one member of the family. If you have 5 children, send 1 to jihad and 4 to be doctors and lawyers. Hamas has a humanitarian face, mask that it wears, because this is their power. Hamas has infrastructure, schools, hospitals, institutions. It's very hard to get rid of. So to be in that complicated organization that honestly Israel has been fighting against Hamas for the last 25 years, guess what? Hamas got only stronger. How can you explain that? Israel did everything possible to stop Hamas violence, and I am sorry to say that Israel has failed. To be in that environment, living with all the complications within the movement, and to be also part of the Israeli intelligence, most powerful intelligence in the world, an underground agency as well, you somehow exist, but you don't exist. There was no eye that can see you, simply. It's why, sometimes when you go try to find Son of Hamas, you will find it under the Christian fiction. Because my life is somehow like a dream, that it's hard even to explain it in dry words or any language. But this new chapter of knowing Christ and loving my enemy was the new motivation. I became very enthusiastic, and I wanted to stop killing. I was not certain about the Israeli political agendas. I was not certain about the Palestinian political agendas. They both could be wrong. And I didn't know what to do, but I could save human lives. So now, a conflicted person who is doubting and questioning his identity in a situation where he can save human lives, but with working with his father's enemies, that was the only choice. And I had to trust in the words of a new teacher who came into my life because I want to take the risk and see if the challenge works in the practical life, to come to one simple thing. With all this confusion, complications, I came to one thing. How can you go wrong by saving a human life? Put Christianity, Islam, Judaism, governments on the side. As individual, can you go wrong by saving a human life? You can't go wrong with that. So that was my goal, and I had to focus on that. For 10 years, working very hard, every day, we stopped dozens of suicide bombing attacks. When I say suicide bomber, we're talking of an individual would wrap himself with explosives, go take a bus, sit down in the middle of a crowd, old people, children, women, going to schools, going to work, just rushing, drinking coffee, whatever they're doing on that bus. And this kid is trying to take revenge by blowing himself up first, then killing all those people. We had to get to those people before they got to the bus. Do you mind me sharing something about how Hamas, recruit a suicide bomber, like, quickly? Or how much time do we have?
Quickly. We have about 6 more minutes.
6 more minutes? Hamas come to somebody, go into the mosque in the dark. 2 masked men would stop him and say, listen, do you want to become a suicide bomber? He would say, yes. And they tell him, okay, you come with us. They would take him. In less than 48 hours, he's on the bus killing himself and killing other people. If he says no, he leaves. He did not recognize the faces, and he will never tell anybody about his experience because he could spend time in prison. So simply, Hamas does not have a long list, thousands of volunteers to become suicide bombers. Hamas picks its candidate to become a suicide bomber 48 hours before they commit the suicide. How can you find someone like this? So when I say that we found dozens of suicide bombers, that was a big security achievement. Big success. Do I get credits for this? I don't. I think after, God, and after His protection, after the work that He did in my life, by encouraging me to love my enemy, and that was the real and the strongest motivation. There are many soldiers in the field that they get credit as well. I think that missionary who invited me to a Bible study, which, sometimes I don't encourage people just to go out and interrupt people's conversations, invite them to a Bible study. I mean, like, the right time and the right location. You have to be very gentle the way that you do this type of things. Not to invite people to a church, because most of the time this is what we do, invite people to a church. How about we invite people to love? How about we invite people to forgiveness that we learned and we witnessed through the life of Christ, instead of inviting people for political and religious agendas? Well, I'm trying to say here that many people's lives were saved. Today, I am a follower of Christ. I might not identify with Christianity as it is in the United States or anywhere in the world, because I'm not sure that this is what really Christ tried to create. But the challenge that I give myself every day is to love my enemies, to forgive people unconditionally and love them unconditionally. And this is the core of my message.
Let me ask you one more thing as we finish up today. For anybody who would be listening today, whether they're in this room or anywhere else, they're hearing your voice today, and they're still searching. They've not found that light. They've not taken that challenge. What one thing would you say to them to encourage them to step up and take that challenge?
I invite myself, first of all, second, everyone else, to love thy enemies. If you have an enemy, I don't know how you define that. I don't know who came to the conclusion that he is or she is an enemy. Please, to take a minute and try to forgive them. Try to forgive yourself and to be able to move on. If there is something that you can fix, please fix it. This is my message. Thank you very much.
Brother, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Let's wrap this all up together this morning. That was a unique experience, yes? And just getting to hear what God is doing in the life of someone so far away from our experiences. And yet the message, the core of that message is exactly the same. And for those of us who walk with Christ, there are some things we need to hear in that. The man who invited him to the Bible study was a cab driver visiting Jerusalem. And he just went out to invite people. Didn't speak Arabic, didn't speak Hebrew. Saw these guys. He was staying at a YMCA. There was a Bible study at YMCA. And he took a chance. He stepped out of his own comfort zone and was willing to invite somebody. He couldn't even speak the same language. And yet somehow they communicated. And that began a chain of events that altered a life and lives for eternity. For those of us who know Jesus, sometimes it's hard for us to step outside of that comfort zone, isn't it? To take a chance, to talk to somebody, to invite someone, to make a connection in a risky sort of way. But I know Mosab would say to us, you've got to take that chance. You've got to be willing to risk. And you've got to be willing to live for Christ regardless of the cost. Because it cost him, in an earthly sense, everything he had, everything he grew up with. Be willing to stand for truth. And don't be afraid to question and to seek, because God is always looking for those who will seek him. And that leads me to the last thing this morning, is that if today you are one who is still outside those gates, still looking to make a commitment to Jesus Christ, and you have not done that yet for whatever reason, you've been holding off, you've been backing off, you've been double clutching at just the moment when you know you need to make a decision. This is the time. Because Jesus is calling you by his great love and by his power to leave a life that will ultimately lead you to destruction, to purposelessness, to a lack of fulfillment, and to choose to follow him in a way that will not only make a difference in your life now and the lives of those around you now, but will make a difference in lives for eternity. And if you've never done that, if you've never been willing to say, God, I'm willing to leave the path that I've been on and begin this journey with you, I want to give you the chance to do that today, because God is looking for you today. We can do that through prayer right now. If you would bow your heads, close your eyes for just a moment. Let's go to God in prayer. Father, we simply want to thank you for life that you make known to us as those who follow you. Might we live courageously, understanding that it's Jesus who has given us the mandate for how life is to be lived, selflessly, courageously, lovingly, toward those who we like and toward those who we don't. Father, might we live those kinds of lives. And this morning, as we sit together in prayer, if you've never given your life to Jesus Christ, I'm going to phrase a prayer out loud, and you can repeat it silently in your heart. It's not a ritual, it's not a formula, but if these words reflect your desire today, God would meet you here today and put you on a path that will take you places and ways that you've never imagined from now into forever. You pray these words if you want to follow Christ. Father in heaven, today I choose to come to you. I have heard you call me. I know what you're saying. Even though I have resisted, today I open my life. Jesus, come in and take control. I will walk with you and follow you. Would you make me new, forgive my sins, and change me into that person that you've always wanted me to be? Give me that strength to walk your path, I ask in your name. Amen.
This has been a Knott Avenue Christian Church video production. If you'd like information about Knott Avenue Christian Church, or after giving to your home church you feel led to contribute to Knott Avenue Christian Church, please visit our website at www.kacc.com. We thank you for watching and hope you'll join us again.